All right, U-turn friends, I'm bringing you Kathy Caprino today, who is somebody that has been in my orbit for so long, so many versions of myself. She's been in the career space like I was, but she's a little bit different, a little bit more focuses. She's an international career and leadership coach. She's a writer, she's a speaker, an executive trainer, and she really helps professional women advance, they thrive, and just reach their highest, most rewarding possible potential. She's been named a top voice with LinkedIn, and she's a former corporate VP, trained therapist, seasoned executive coach, and senior Forbes contributor, sought after media source on career issues. And she's the author of 2 books, including her latest, which is called The Most Powerful You, 7 Bravery Boosting Paths to Career Bliss, which is now offered as a training course for individuals and organizations. And she also has her podcast called Finding Brave. I could go on and on. You could check her out at kathycaprino.com. I'll put it in the show notes. But what I'm most excited today to talk to her about is, she talks about 7 most damaging power and confidence gaps that negatively impact 98% of professional women and 90% of men today. Surprise, surprise. There's a discrepancy. The women be taking the hit. And I would just love to also talk to her about confidence boosting. Like, how do we really do that? And just what she's seeing in the career space right now, because I've completely stepped out of that with Wise Whisper Agency. So, Kathy, finally, we get to hang out.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm
Me
honored,
too.
Ashley. My goodness. We have been kind of tracking for so long.
Oh my
And,
gosh, there's so many Forbes like articles I've seen. They feature me, and then you're right next to me, and I'm like, who's this Kathy? And do you know what the experience of you has been in I guess it's becoming conscious right now, but I've always saw you like through a regal lens. I'm like, this woman is a trained therapist. She's not just out there giving her opinions. She's worked on her ability to work within people's psychology. You have something very regal and elevated about your abilities.
Oh, Ashley, what a
Yeah,
beautiful word. I
thank
thank
you.
you. And what a compliment. I really take that to heart. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Thank
and you've always responded. I feel like we've also had like email exchanges because we've been looped on similar email lists within small groups.
right.
And you've always been the person that like wants to add the value and share and respond. So I just really see you. I appreciate you. And I know a lot of people listening, they're probably thinking, okay, well, why is Kathy doing this? Like everybody has a different reason to be a career coach. I kind of fell into it, honestly. Like I just got
Wow.
really good at helping people get job offers way back when. But
Wow.
what brings you to who you are now, and why did you write about power and confidence gaps? What is it about that for you?
What an amazing question. Thank you again for those kind words. So it's a story, and I'll try to make it brief. Um, I had when I went to college, I thought I was an English lit person. I loved psychology, and I had a dream of getting into publishing and interestingly helping authors birth their ideas. That's what I thought the dream was. I get out, bail on that dream instantly and got into publishing, but marketing, membership services. And the older I got, the farther away I was from who I really wanted to be. But worse than that, as I hit 40, I faced so many bumps turned into crises. So, sexual harassment, gender bias, gender discrimination, toxic colleagues, narcissistic bosses, chronic illness. Look, I can't even talk about it without the choking for a minute. Zero work-life balance, chronic illness, as I said, and my kids were little then, and I wasn't in the fabric of their lives, right? But worse than all of that, I swear to you, was waking up every day saying, "Is this what my life is gonna be?" The family part rocked. I so love being a mother and my family, but that professional part was a disaster. But I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know what was wrong. And then I was laid off after 9/11 in a way that was not copacetic. And good girl Kathy snapped and saw a lawyer, and all I'll say is it ended well. But was sitting in my therapist's office weeping. And he said, "I know from where you sit, this looks like the worst crisis you've ever faced. But from where I sit, it's the first moment you can choose who you want to be in the world. Who do you want to be? Not what, but who." And I said, "I don't know. I want to be you." And he said, "What does that mean to you?" And I said, "I want to help people, not hurt people and be hurt." And long story short, he said, "I think you'd make a great therapist." And I thought he was right. And I got a master's in marriage and family therapy. And that was the most life-changing experience, Ashley, because if you're going to be helpful as a therapist, you have to find a way to love every person that's sitting in front of you. Pedophilia, rape, incest, suicidality, hard stuff, you know. It was so life-changing, but that wasn't the ultimate destination. I would notice that when career women would be on my calendar for therapy, it was usually about depression and anxiety and being lost. I somehow lit up. So I studied being a coach, and now I've done that 17 years. And part of that, you know, you were talking about regal, which is such a beautiful word. There's so many, I'm just going to say this. There's so many people that come out of the gate and say they're a coach, and they have no training. And even CEOs have left and say, now I'm a coach. I'm sorry to say it, but everybody isn't a coach. And you have to be trained about what it is to help someone on their journey, not just give advice. But I love it so much, but I have to say, I also love the writing and the training and research. I used to be a market researcher too. So I don't just make stuff up, you know? And about the book, I'm doing a lot of talking here. I hope it's answering the question. The reason I wrote this book, and this is my second book, I don't know, about 6 years ago, I said, what is going on here? That no matter where these women are calling from, mid to high level professional women around the world, no matter how much money they make, no matter their education, no matter their field, their level, they're bringing the same problems over and over and over. And I said, I've got to pull the viewfinder back and understand what's missing. And after doing a lot of digging in and research, what emerged was this: they're missing the bravery to face head on what isn't working and take accountability to change it. But that's not enough. We need power. And that's where I saw that as far as women have come, I don't mean to paint every woman with the same brush or every man with the same brush. Of course, we're all different. But my research and others show we tend to shun power. I did a poll on LinkedIn about, do you want more power?
Mm.
And so many women said, no,
Mm.
power is abusive, power is aggressive. And I said, well, what do you want? And they said, influence, impact. I said, I hate to break it to you.
You
You
need power.
cannot have that without power. So I decided to figure out, what does that mean? What is power? What are the 7 ways or 10 ways? It was first 10. Now I broke it down to 7. What specifically do we need to do differently with regard to power and bravery? And that's what that book is. And that is truly what I focus on every single day.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I love the topic of power. And I know in your recent book, you write about like, what is that gap? And I found that so interesting that you talk about those damaging power and confidence gaps. So maybe we have time to go through all 7. Hopefully we do. What would you say are the first few that sit with you the most? Or maybe there's a chronological order.
I'd love to just read them off
Yeah.
quick, 7, and then
Yes.
start with number 1, and because I think it's
Perfect.
the heart of it. Number 1 is, I don't recognize my special talents, abilities, and gifts, and I see this quickly on clients fill out a career path assessment that I've written. They can't answer, how do they stand out? They can't answer it. They leave it blank, or I don't
Mm.
know, or I'm still struggling. Number 2 is communicating from fear, not strength. Number 3 is reluctance to ask for what you want and deserve.
Mm.
Number 4 is isolating from influential support. We have mentors, but we don't have nearly as many sponsors, the high level influential mentors that men often have. Number 5 is acquiescing instead of saying stop to mistreatment and unfair behavior to us and around us. Number 6 is losing sight of the thrilling dream you had for your life and your career. And number 7 is um, allowing the past to continue to shape and define you.
Mm.
So a video of mine's coming out soon about this is my belief, 90% of career problems are not career problems. They're
They're
not
probably
career problems.
problems. What are they?
There are problems in how we view ourselves, how we see ourselves, how we're trained culturally in societally to speak about ourselves, to think about ourselves. It's our mindsets. It's all about how you are showing up and approaching your job, your career, your interviewing. They're really not career problems.
Mm,
I mean, they manifest as my boss is abusing me, or I never get ahead, or I'm so underpaid,
mm,
or no matter how many job interviews I have, I don't move forward. They manifest that way. But almost always I see a crux that's in the way. And if you don't deal with that root, no matter what career, no matter if you move from VP to entrepreneurship, you're going to have the same problem. And, the reason I know this is after I left my toxic corporate career and became a therapist, I said, well, those years are over, those horrible experiences. And
mm,
honest to goodness, I launched a therapy practice with a number of individuals. The same exact stuff started to happen.
mm,
Narcissism, mistreatment, not speaking up for myself. And so it really was me becoming a therapist and getting energy healing and therapy myself, and then really understanding what the heck's going on here.
mm. How was narcissism showing up with you being a therapist? Was it with yourself or was it something you were experiencing from other people?
It was the people I was partnering with.
Hmm.
Um, and truthfully, I talk about this in the book, but my parents, my beloved parents, are passed. Mom died last March at 98, and my father, my beloved dad, died 10 years ago at 93. I had a very happy childhood, but one aspect I had, and I had to ask my mother permission to write about this, years ago. I couldn't speak up to my mother. She's Greek, and you didn't challenge her. And
Mm,
later I said, Mom, I'm about to write about this. I'd like to write about this. I'd like to speak about this. What do you think? And she was silent. And I thought, oh no. But she said, yeah, I can imagine you would think you couldn't speak up to me because that's how I was. She was fierce. That's how I was raised. You do not challenge your authority figures. I bring it up because if you grew up where you could not say what you feel or challenge other people, or there was other forms of narcissism, you're going to find it everywhere you go. It's going to be in your partnerships. It's going to be in your staff. It's going to be with your bosses because it's what you're familiar with. What do you think when I say that?
I think that everybody comes from a certain type of nest energy and things are comfort zones, like, and it's pretty powerful. And I think a lot of people don't realize what happened in their nest that and what they made it mean. I know in my own nest, I developed some very positive things, also some very painful things, right? Like I developed a sense of urgency because my dad lost all of his money. And I remember watching him when I was a kid thinking, I better freaking learn how to make money so I don't have to have a bad time like this. And so
Right.
I've had like ants in my pants my whole career because the fear of God has been in me of
Right.
having to go through what he went through. And in some ways, I did go through what he went through, but this urgency lives on inside of me. And so I think how our caretakers show up with us is so paramount for the meaning we make about life, the meaning we make about ourselves, and who we be in our careers. And that's the thing. Like, I don't know if you've ever listened to Steve Chandler, Kathy. Did you ever listen to his stuff?
I don't. Now I will.
He's a coach, and I just find his perspective, anyone who wants to be a coach, I always tell them to read Prosperous Coach. He wrote this book about it.
Oh, I'll check
And
it out right away.
he has a distinction about personal versus professional self. And he talks about how your professional self wants to be respected, your personal self wants to be liked. And your personal self is all about like all your wounds and all the little things you're bringing in your backpack with you
Mm,
for people to like you. And that
mm.
always stuck with me. And even now, I love my team. I have a team of like 25 people I'm developing
Wow.
right now.
Good for you.
And I want everybody to like me. I want them to want to work with me. I want them to want to stay with me. We have a couple writers where I'm like, wow, you're the best writer. It's just so impressive.
Oh, wow.
All of our writers are great, but a couple of them I'm like blown away and like, how do I never lose this person? And
Interesting.
that comes from my own stuff, right? Like my
Right.
professional self needs to come to the plate and say, professionally, I'm going to be fine and I need to be a businesswoman and I need to do these things to protect my business and not just sit here in this low frequency of like me, like me, like me.
Wow.
Um,
That's powerful. I think this is a corollary, and it's not contradictory to what you just said, but I say this, you are a person when you show up to your professional life. There is not a dichotomy.
mm,
Um, so I think you're saying that you want to be liked, and that's a personal trait, but it shows up in the business. I mean, the only times I think that that's maybe not necessarily true, like I really felt like I rocked it as a mother. But in the business world where I'm negotiating myself for money, that's where it got much more complicated.
yeah,
So I think that's around power, that's around money. And as you say, we all have a money story. We all have it. And most of us don't have a very healthy one. I got to be honest.
yeah,
Most of us really didn't learn that we either think some people think it's the root of all evil, like the filthy rich. If you say filthy rich, then you never want to be, it goes on and on. But
right.
I think that if we can, and I don't do therapy in coaching, but I have a therapeutic lens and I can't lobotomize myself. So immediately they come, I look at the career path assessment and I see what it is. I'm like,
Mm,
there it is.
mm,
And usually when they start talking, I say, how old is this problem? Nobody ever says it just started.
mm,
They go, "Oh my god, it's so old."
mm,
So there we go. We all have a different take, don't we, Ashley? You help TEDx speakers tell their most amazing story. We all have our own lens of how we help people. For me, it's looking at who you really are
mm,
and where you are not confident and powerful. And if we can go there and close that,
mm,
everything about your career is going to get better. Now, sometimes, as you know, none of this you don't know. Your ecosystem, whether that's your family or your company, they're used to walking all over you, or they're used to you not speaking up potentially. So all of a sudden, when you start to change, it's not a magic bullet. Sometimes the system rejects you because it's not who they signed up to have. So then you have to realize, okay, this ecosystem isn't for me anymore. It worked, I guess, when I didn't speak up, when I didn't assert myself, when I didn't use my voice. So it's a journey.
Well, that brings me to a really powerful topic, which is how many women aren't using their voice to step into their power. That's actually something I probably deal with more than anything. And well, I don't deal with it a lot at Wise Whisper Agency, but I feel a lot of pain when I'm confronted with having to use my voice. Because usually I don't really hear about we have 50 TEDx talks we're writing and booking right now. I'm not
Awesome.
hearing, we have creative directors, we have 10 creative directors, 15 writers. Our chief creative director was Steve Jobs' right hand and wrote a bunch of speeches for his team. So our team
Holy
is
cow.
pretty like in their power with their professionalism and what they can do. So I don't really hear about a talk unless the project is going wrong. There's been about 2 clients out of 50 that I've heard about them. And that's when it's time for me to use my voice, right? It's time for me
Right.
to look at the contract. What's the issue? Do they think we're stupid? What is going on, right? Like what's the real problem?
So going wrong means they're not happy or they're saying it's not moving
Exactly.
forward. Wow.
Exactly. And I actually am dealing with a situation like that tomorrow, which is interesting because I haven't really I mean, it's just been kind of like sunshine and flowers over here most of the time. But tomorrow I need to talk to a client where basically their scope was almost done and we delivered everything they asked for. The client was like one of those very big business owners and he delegated all of the work to his team. So we had all these people on our calls and we basically wrote the draft for his TED talk. It looks like he probably didn't really take a look at it until the end of it, right? Because then he came in with, well, actually, I want this and I want that. Well, we can't rewrite your whole thing. We're pretty much at the end now. But then I wanted to people please. So I said, okay, let's rewrite your whole thing.
Oh, no.
And for many different reasons, his new one is not going to be as good as the old one because he's in the medical profession and there's a lot of medical rules and you have to walk those boundaries. And a lot of the things he wanted changed were medical things that we did not want to say in his TEDx talk because they're going to get his TED talk pulled down. So
Here.
anyway, we rewrote what he wanted, and now our booking team is looking at it saying both the one that you had before is workable, the one that you have that he demanded now is not. So tomorrow's the last call of the project, and we're basically delivering two done talks, one we think is usable and one that's not.
Ashley.
And I need to figure out how to basically say we don't want to work with you anymore and we don't want to give you a refund because we did all the work. I paid all the people and it's not our responsibility that you don't want to show up for your own project until the end. Um, but obviously, how do we say that in a nice little fuzzy way that doesn't make people not like you? I don't know if there is one. So,
How about we do it? How about I talk to you
oh
about
my
this?
gosh, let's do it.
So I really do know that you know a lot of what I'm saying, but maybe listeners don't.
Right.
I have, I've been doing this 17 years.
Yeah.
So I have
Bring
had
it on.
every difficult client you can imagine for every reason, from raging narcissism to mental illness to needing therapy. The very first thing is that the contract has to be so clear, so clear. And in my contract, I say, for instance, there are no refunds.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I've done work with over 20,000 women individually around the world and blah, blah, blah. And coaches can't guarantee the results. Now that's different. You're writing. But the very first thing is that you have an agreement that if they sign it, they can't substantively argue with something like, we don't do a full redo because blah, blah, blah. But there are times you're going to bend over backwards because you want to please a client.
Right.
So, some tips. I really believe this. I heard this years ago. You can say anything when you say it with love in your heart. And some of my clients are like, love? I don't have love for this.
I don't have love. I want to be like, yeah.
Right. But and it is late in the game because it's the last call, which is unfortunate, right? But when he changed everything, what could have been said is, Fred, I think I see the picture very clearly. You did not write it, your staff did. I see where you want to go, but we're the experts. Like, I'll say this, I am the expert in transformation. You're the expert in your story in your life.
Mhm.
So what that means is if we're going to talk about you changing, I'm going to give you some thoughts and steps, right? But you're the one that knows your life. In that case, you could have said, I think I hear where you want to go. From the bare bones of it, it's going to have legal ramifications. And it's not going to be as strong. So we can write this for you, but I don't think you're going to be happy. And I don't think it's even going to get off the ground. So again, so that sounds like narcissism a little bit. What's going on?
Yeah.
But if you say to them with love in your heart, I know that you want an impactful talk. This is not it. So we have a choice here. We can try to write, this would have been 5 weeks ago. We could write this again, but we've done this a lot. And I can tell you with really pretty much 100% surety, this is not going in the direction you're going to be happy with.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine her saying, "Why did you write the thing out that we told you to rewrite if you knew it wasn't going to get booked?" And it's like, well, we don't really know until we put it to the page and take your advice, but we already stood by the draft we already wrote. We already told you it was a great draft. And it's not our fault the guy didn't show up until the end to have a problem with the draft.
Is
The whole
he
team.
is he nervous about doing it? Is there some fear there? The first one? I bring it up because I know you know this stuff, but
Yeah.
listeners might find this helpful. I've had it where a client will say, I want to go in this direction unequivocally. And then an hour later after the call, they're vacillating.
Yeah.
And I record the videos. So I say, look back at what you just said on the call. You're 100% there. What happened? It's always fear when they back off. Like,
Mm.
oh, I don't know. This isn't good. Is there fear of that person being vulnerable or there's something? It's a man. We said, is it that?
No, I think it's narcissism because he's pretty famous and he kind of like, I think there's something inherently narcissistic about having your whole team do something and then come in when the entire scope is complete and putting it on the other people that it's not what you want. I think
I'm
as
sorry,
leaders,
Ashley. Difficult.
oh, you're so sweet. Like, I think there's something in being a leader where, like, if you, like, I think that, what am I trying to say? There's certain types of leaders that will be annoyed when their employee has questions for them. To me, that's like a toxic leader. It's like, well, you hired people.
Right.
They should have questions, and it's your role to support them in the answers so that they could keep serving whatever you hired them to do, right? And I think there's some people, and I guess we see them because we're working at such a high level with some of the biggest thinkers with these TEDx talks where, and there's some really beautiful souls that come in and they totally see the magic we have. But this is like that 1 or 2 out of 50 person where it's like, this is gonna be a brutal meeting tomorrow. And I
Oh,
felt it in the pit of
no.
my stomach since yesterday. I actually think I'm going to create a video on Loom showing them the old talk, showing them the new talk, talking about why I don't like some of the suggestions they made, and letting them know they're welcome to choose which one we want to get booked. I'm confident this second one he wanted changed that we happily did outside of scope and rewrote to show him.
There you go.
I'm clear it's gonna get pulled down from the TEDx channel if they wanna do it. So, I
Is
think
there a way to remove the questionable aspects while
like,
keeping the thread and the arc of the second one? Would that
no,
be a comp?
no, he completely changed the talking points,
God.
and it would all be tagged as pseudoscience. Like, this kind of person has claims like food will cure cancer, like, the TEDx channel won't accept that.
Oh, God, Ashley.
Yeah. So it's I guess it's
So, yeah.
my question, like, as we're talking about power and communication and using your
Mhm.
voice and boundaries, do you have a formula you use to set boundaries with customers, clients, situations? Like, how do you, for everybody who's listening before we go, like,
Mm.
how do they
Well, I
think?
will give an example and then I'll extricate what
Yeah.
the process is. Years ago, before I knew all that I do right now, I had a client who was narcissistic and and I didn't really know that till it happened. We would talk about steps he needed to take, but he wouldn't take them. So
Mm,
every call, he would be upset. And why am I not moving forward? Meaning coaching is terrible. So
mm,
at one point, he wrote me an email and he went off. I didn't pay for this. You haven't moved me forward. It hasn't worked. I want a refund. So
mm,
part of this is, and you have a pit in your stomach. I was a wreck. Must be 10 years ago now. My high blood pressure went crazy. And of course, I got defensive and I got angry. I know better now, Ashley.
mm.
I know what that is. And so, unbelievably, I got my shit together. And this is what I did. I wrote, let's call him Adam. Hi, Adam. So, I mean, this is how to craft a response, which is a smaller question than you're asking.
Yeah. No, I
But
think it's great.
oh, good. I said, first of all, I hear how upset you are. I want you to know I hear that. And I'm sorry you're going through what you're going through. Secondly, I need to correct a few things and clarify a few things. And as calmly and respectfully as I could, I said, number one, if you look back on the agreement we signed, I don't do the work for you. I am coaching you through steps you agree to do
Mhm,
because you think they're right, but I can't jump in there and do them for you.
mhm,
Number two, as we talked about, these interviews aren't going the way you want because blip, blip, and blip. So I bring in, there's a process here. First, I'm clarifying you can't blame me. I'm doing my best. Number two, we did talk about a lot of the stuff that he didn't do that would have helped him get these interviews and succeed. And so I point him to video 3, 4, and 6.
mm.
But finally, I said, but more important than all of this, Adam, I would like you to sit back and read the email that you sent to me. And I would like to ask you, what would you think and how would you feel if someone wrote this to you?
Mm,
I want you to think about that and let's hop on a call.
beautiful.
And he wrote back in about 6 hours, I am so embarrassed and ashamed, and I am sorry. And he went on to say, he was having an episode of
Mhm,
freaking out.
mhm,
And, but we went on and we had the 2 more sessions, and he did not succeed in doing what he wanted to because he wasn't really capable, fortunately. But I was proud of myself, frankly, because it took every ounce of higher self not to lambaste this guy. Oh,
mm,
I did say at the very end, and by the way, if I ever receive an email like this again from you, we are done and there are no refunds, as you know. Thank
mm,
you so much. I said it.
mm,
So, to extrapolate, I think the key is no emotion, no defensiveness on your part,
mm,
calm as can be, but you need to be incredibly clear that the way this process works is not that the person doing the talk is unconnected to the process of developing the talk. That doesn't work. Why would it ever work?
mhm.
Unless these people, know you inside out. And so
I
that doesn't work. But we bent over backwards and broke our own rule and our own agreement that we would do a rewrite. We don't believe this rewrite, modifying it per your team's recommendations is going to be successful. And worse than that, it's going to land you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, you just say it.
This was so good, Kathy. I'm
Was that
actually
helpful?
yeah, I'm glad for everyone because I do think there's power in speaking up, and I think there's even more power in speaking up with calm energy.
Calm energy.
That is and I had a therapist once who said you are your most powerful when you're calm.
Oh, it's really true.
It's really,
Because when we're not, that everything is energy.
yeah,
And that's what they're reacting to, and they're going to get defensive. If you're full of, I mean, love, I love you, brother. I love you, sister. And this is why this can't fly,
yeah.
but calm, because I can tell you from what you've just told me, I wouldn't want to be in this person's head or
No.
heart.
I mean, he's famous and he's got thousands of employees, some of which are taking his TED Talk on until the end. But I think these are the things that give me perspective when I'm sitting in this seat, especially as a woman in business. There's something about my partner. He has a venture fund, and I watch him navigate conflict, and he's so candid. Then there's me, and he's like, "What are all these emotions?" And he doesn't say it in a demeaning way. It's more just like
What is that?
these aren't gonna move it along, girl. So I'm like, help me get them away. Like I need
Well,
calm.
that's what I mean, that this is not a career problem. This is our reactivity, and that how old is this problem?
Mm-hmm.
Probably old. There's one other thing I want to leave listeners with. I will be 100% honest. I do not work with CEOs for this reason. So many are incredibly, in order to have risen to where they did, they're incredibly well defended, meaning they are not open.
Yeah.
It's defensiveness, it's power. Not all CEOs. There's amazing. I'm dealing with one right now who I adore. But generally, to have gotten to that spot, there can be narcissism. There can be, because we have to, when you're at that level, you got to make decisions, you got to live with them.
Mm.
So, one thing I've decided is it's mid to high level professional women, but not the C suite and that I work with. And I'm overjoyed because they're emerging leaders who are hungry for growth and they're not overly well defended, meaning I am closed to whatever you have to say. They're open, they're vulnerable, and maybe as part of your application process,
Mm-hmm.
and that's another thing, people, I would have more clients if I didn't have an application process. I can see very clearly how this person is showing up in the world. And I can tell if I'm going to be successful with them and if I'm going to enjoy the work.
Right.
And at my old age, no, I am not old. My wise age, I don't want to do work that I don't enjoy.
Yeah. Amen.
You think it's helpful? Will it tomorrow go better, you think?
I think based on what you just shared, I'm gonna have a lot calmer of a video. I was already gonna be as calm as I could, but like just listening to your energy with your email exchange, I hope that we just transmute that, not transmute that, we transfer that to everybody who's been listening to carry the essence of that into their conflicts at work. And I hope they check out your book. Kathy, where do you want to send everybody to come find you? You're such a joy.
You sweet thing. Thank you for letting me do that. KathyCaprino.com is great. FindingBrave.org, my podcast, which you're going to be on very shortly. Ashley, I can't wait. And my book, Most Powerful You can find that anywhere that you buy your books, Amazon, etc.
Beautiful. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me. Can't wait to hear how it goes tomorrow. Will you let me know?
Yes.